Hello everyone, this is Nick Hendrickson and this is Red Devils Weekly. Welcome to my first ever video. This will be a weekly video posted on Wednesdays about the hottest topics of Manchester United. And for my first video, I decided to speak on what seems to be the hottest topic of all the people all over Twitter, all over Instagram, all over Facebook and the websites and forums and all that. And it's that of current Manchester United manager Louis van Gaal. There's been a big talking point over the last few weeks following the loss to Sunderland and FC Midtjylland in the Europa League, and that is to fire Louis van Gaal and bring in Jose Mourinho, former Chelsea manager. For those of you who don't know much about Louis van Gaal's past, I'm going to briefly touch on that, and then I'll get to the point of the Jose Mourinho. Louis van Gaal's first job was with Ajax in 1991, and he stayed there until 1997. He was the Eredivisie champions with them 3 times. He won the UEFA Cup in 1992 and the UEFA Champions League in 1995, which is really impressive when you think about the size of the club, even though back then it was a little bit more level of a playing field since the big oil money and those kind of things didn't come into play yet. He then moved on to Barcelona and coached there from 1997 to 2000. That was his first stint there. He had 2 league titles in 97-98 and 98-99, and also won the Copa del Rey. Something to point out that kind of plays into the topic of him getting fired as United manager is that when he left Barcelona, the first time, he said in Spanish, and I'm not even going to attempt to say it, "Friends of the press, I am leaving. Congratulations." Which is something that's been happening at Manchester United as well, because he's had a few rows with Manchester United pressers. One time calling someone a fat man, and hopefully they don't get their way, and all that jazz. He also came back to Barcelona in 2002, 2003, but that was a short-lived stint. He went back to Ajax again in 2004 as the technical director shortly before taking over at another Eredivisie club, AZ Alkmaar, in 2005, and stayed there until 2009. He finished second and third in his first 2 seasons. So when you take into account that it's a less competitive league than that of the English Premier League, fairly similar results to what he's having at Manchester right now. He then followed up with finishing in 11th in his 3rd year. He announced that he would be leaving the club at the end of the season, but when he announced that, a lot of the players came out and said, "We want you to stay. We want to win titles with you, like you have in the past." And he basically said, I'll give you a chance to prove yourself." Came back, and next season started a little bit rough, but finished the season with the best defensive record in the Eredivisie and the second best goal scoring output, only behind league champions Ajax. He also had 2 stints with the Netherlands national team, including the last World Cup, where he changed goalkeepers in the penalty shootout, which was kind of a ballsy move on his part, but that's Louis van Gaal for you. Since taking over at Manchester United, he's managed in 64 Premier League games with a record of 31, 18, and 15, which, if you look at it through a 32-game period each season roughly, it would be about 55.5 points, or 55, 56 points, which isn't exactly what a lot of United fans want to see, but it's better than what we have been in the last few years. He won World Soccer Manager of the Year in 1995 with Ajax as well, and he's also won German Coach of the Year, Dutch Coach of the Year twice, things like that. He also has had a huge impact on youth players at every club he's went to. So when people are saying this man deserves to be fired purely out of the fact that we're sitting in 5th right now, I think we need to take a bigger I'll look at the bigger picture and kind of figure out where we want our club to head in the next 5 to 10 years. It's more of a long-term project with Louis van Gaal than it is an immediate result. I mean, seriously, the guy brought Thomas Mueller into the picture. Without him, he obviously, with his skill, would have gotten picked by another manager, but he's got a good eye for youth talent, and he's done that exact same thing at Manchester United. He brought Jesse Lingard, who basically spent the first 23, 22 years of his life playing in either the youth system or going out on loan to virtually every club you could imagine in the lower leagues. He never really got a chance. He's brought him into the fold this year, and he's been phenomenal. He's probably been one of our better players this season, to be entirely honest. He's also given guys like Tyler Blackett, who's out on loan on Celtic now, a chance. He's been fairly disappointing in the fact that he hasn't been able to come into the fold as a center back alongside Chris Smalling, but that's beyond the point. He gave Paddy McNair a chance, who is exciting for the future. He hasn't really lived up to the potential of the first few games he had last season, but I think he's a great player, and he'll definitely pan out to be a United first-team player for years to come. Probably comparable career to O'Shea, maybe. He's also brought in youth talent like Memphis Depay, who's come under a lot of scrutiny lately about his performances, myself included. But one thing we should take into consideration when talking about Memphis is that he's a young kid. We spent a lot of money on him to bring him from the Eredivisie, which, I mean, no slight at the league, but there's definite talent level difference between the Eredivisie and the English Premier League and the Champions League, which he had competed in before with PSV as well. He's been having some great performances in Europe. Was one of our best players, probably our only really good player on the pitch against Midtjylland, bar Anthony Martial, who always has moments of brilliance. And going on that point, Louis van Gaal also brought in Anthony Martial, who, in my opinion, is going to be a world-class striker in 1 to 2 years. He's phenomenal. Great footwork, lots of skill, very creative, fairly strong for a 19-year-old, but definitely needs to get a little bit stronger, because some of these stronger center backs in the Premier League tend to push him around here and there, but that's something that can be improved on with age. So when you look at that, bringing all those youth players in, the eye the man has and the definite ability he has as a manager, would it really be the smart decision to sack him before the end of the season? I mean, really, where did that get us in the past? We brought David Moyes in, we sacked him before the end of the season. Giggs managed the last 4 games of the season, and then we brought in Louis van Gaal, who everyone seemed to be pretty surprised about at the time, but after that summer tour, we were like, okay, yeah, he's the right man. Let's go on with this. But as always, most of my fellow United fans are really impatient, and if we don't win trophies every season, they call for sacking the manager. I don't think that's the right decision. Jose Mourinho, don't get me wrong, he's won trophies everywhere. He's won the league everywhere. He's won the Champions League. He's a great manager. But I don't think he's the man for United. He's always seemed to have this trend follow him from club to club where he's had issues with individual players, and it's more often than not floated over into losing the locker room as a whole. And where would that put us as a club? We would go from sacking Louis van Gaal to bringing in Mourinho, maybe winning a domestic cup or competing in the Champions League, or maybe in 3 years, 4 years time span, winning 1 league trophy. But really, is that worth it for a man that has a history of having issues with players? And in my personal opinion, this obviously can't be proven by statistics. The man tends to put all the blame on the players and none on himself as a manager, which I think is a poor quality as a manager. You are the leader of the club, so therefore you should be representing it, and you should be taking fault for overall team performances, which Louis van Gaal has done brilliantly. Another point to Louis van Gaal's favor is he's brought this new sense in the last few weeks because he's realized he's on the hot seat. He's brought a newfound hunger to his press conferences and to his game. He's actually moving around on the bench a bit, not just staring into his notepad, which seems to be an irritant to a lot of the United fan base. So, with that in mind, if he brings this new sense of hunger, there's no reason why he can't turn this situation around. Obviously, this season it's going to be very difficult to finish in the top 4 as we're 6 points off of Manchester City. And then Arsenal, Tottenham, and Leicester are competing for first place. But 5th place is ours to lose right now, I would think. And there's no reason we can't catch up on Man City. There's plenty of time left. And with competitions like the Europa League, which we need a huge win tomorrow, and the FA Cup, which is probably the most realistic goal for us, facing West Ham in the semifinals. The quarterfinals. I believe truly that Manchester United should stick with our current man. I mean, he's only got one more year after this, so I don't think, even if we finished 4th next year and won the Capital One Cup or something like that, I don't think it would have any lasting effects on the club as a whole moving forward. And I think that we're still in for 2 trophies this season, and there's no reason we can't finish top 4. If we win the FA Cup, obviously you all know that will guarantee us a place into the qualifying rounds of the Europa League, which is where we're at now. And even though it's not the Champions League, it's better than no European football, which we got a few years ago after the season with David Moyes. We also are still in the Europa League, and there's no reason we can't beat FC Michelin at home by 1-0. That's all we need. We have an away goal. We're down 2-1 on aggregate. But all we need is 1 goal. And there's absolutely no reason we can't keep a clean sheet against them if we stay a little bit more disciplined and we bring out a little bit stronger of a lineup than we did last match. We may have underestimated them, and that bit us in the butt, but it was our game to lose, and we lost it. So, in closing, Louis van Gaal should stay as manager. Jose Mourinho is not the right man. Let me know what you think. Give the like button a click down below. Subscribe and comment, and let me know your thoughts. Thanks. See you next week.